Hi there, good afternoon. My name's Katie. I'm the Communications Director at Acts 435, and we're really excited about doing this first ever Instagram Live, a new idea to trial and hopefully give you some more insight into partnering with Acts 435, what that involves, and how you can get involved as well. So we're really excited today. We're going to be joined shortly by Jono, who is on the leadership team of Blackpool Church, and they've been partnering with Acts 435 for a while. But while we're waiting for him to join us, I'm just going to tell you just a little bit about Acts 435 if you've not heard of us before or are relatively new to us and what we do. So we're an online giving charity, and we directly connect those that want to help with those that have specific practical needs. And we do this through a network of local churches and charities who partner with us all around the UK. Jono is just about to join us, so I'm just going to add him into the call. But just while he's joining us, I'm just going to tell you a little bit more about what we do. So we've been running for 13 years as a charity, and we currently partner with over 600 churches and charities to meet the needs of individuals in their communities. So in the past 13 years, we've helped over 46,000 people with over £5 million, all of which has directly gone to their specific individual needs. Hi, Jono.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us.
It's a real privilege. Thank you for having me.
This is really, really exciting.
No problem.
I was it's our first ever Instagram Live, so I'm praying that everything goes right and technically goes right. So, but we're off to a good start.
Wonderful.
Fantastic. Hi to people that are joining us. If you've got any questions, pop them in the chat and we'll try and answer them towards the end. But this afternoon is just about getting to know what partnership with Acts 435 looks like for a church or a local charity. Maybe you're interested in partnering with us. So I've just got some questions for you, Jono. I hope that's okay. And
that's great.
You might have some for me as well, which is fab. And we'll just have a bit of a brief chat, really, and just have a look at what partnership looks like. So, Jono, introduce yourself. Who are you, and what do you do?
Great. Yeah, so my name's Jono. I'm married to Amy, and we've got two little ones, Ava and Noah, who are very cute and run around a lot, which is good fun. I am the ordinand, which is kind of vicar in training, really, at Blackpool Church St John's, right in the town centre in the middle of Blackpool. So I'm training to be a vicar and enjoying the kind of roller coaster and adventure that is.
Amazing. Fantastic. So you're at Blackpool Church. What is Blackpool Church and what does it do in your community? What does it run?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are part of the HTB network, Holy Trinity Brompton network, which is a kind of network within a network, if you like, within the Church of England, across the country that are kind of galvanised around a kind of common vision of kind of re-evangelisation of the communities that we're part of, the revitalisation of the church, and the transformation of lives within people who live in that community. And so for us, doing stuff that faces out is really important, and actually more important really than the stuff that faces in. And we've never wanted to be a church that's consumed with just looking kind of inwards at ourselves and kind of maintaining what we have. We want to be a church that looks out and reaches the community, and is generous with what we have. And so, I've, in a kind of previous life, which we'll maybe touch on a little bit, I was a CAP debt centre manager. So I've been aware of the work of Acts for a long time in various different roles that I've had. And actually coming here about a year ago, just over a year ago, we sort of started partnering with Acts, which we see just as a real crucial part of the ministry of our church, really. We are... sometimes statistics are helpful, sometimes they're unhelpful, but in terms of the Church Urban Fund's kind of poverty index, which is where they kind of look at every parish within the Church of England, at least across the country, and kind of by different metrics kind of order the level of deprivation within that community by kind of different categories. We are the 9th most deprived parish in the UK. So in terms of the kind of cutting edge of poverty, 8 of the most 10 deprived council boroughs sit within Blackpool as well. And so across the town, it's not to say that every single person in Blackpool is kind of living in extreme poverty, but certainly the breadth of quite extreme, shocking poverty is more sort of stark and obvious here than it has been certainly in other places that I've lived and ministered in.
Yeah, that's really interesting to hear, isn't it? And you run quite a few things from the church. I know CAP Life Skills is one of those.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, getting CAP Life Skills established was a real key part of what we wanted to do. We've got fantastic partnerships with various local schools. A really exciting thing that we've been able to pioneer is actually running the life skills program, not just in our church, but alongside the pastoral team at a local school. So parents, we've done it once, we're doing it again in a couple of weeks. It kicks off again, where parents will drop the kids off in the morning and then stay in the kind of pastoral lounge area where they've got a little kitchen and it sort of simulates like a kitchen diner really in the school, where they do a lot of their support work. And we then go in and lead the CAP life skills program in the school, which has been a fantastic kind of way of just building relationship and really empowering people. And I think what we see for us kind of spearing the work of CAP and the work of Acts 435 is that Acts is a fantastic tool to meet the kind of crisis point for people, and that partnering the work of Acts alongside the work of CAP Life Skills, which is very much about kind of empowerment and education and community and helping people to help themselves, really, that we can step in and we just find the two work together really well in terms of addressing kind of the root cause of a lot of the challenges, which Life Skills does really well. But also we are meeting a significant amount of people who are just in crisis and have nothing. And so to be able to relatively quickly respond with really practical, requests really shows that we care, and it shows the love of Christ in really practical ways, which is a beautiful thing. So yeah, we love the way that those two projects work together. And there are numerous other things that go on in the life of the church, but they're the two really that are that really excite me, I think.
Yeah, that's fantastic, wonderful. So you've been partnered with us for about a year since you obviously moved to Blackpool, but so who are your advocates within your church? Do you have more than one advocate? So by advocate, just to explain, I mean the representative of Acts 435 within the church or charity. So how many advocates do you have, and how you've explained a little bit, I suppose, in one sense, how you go about finding the need, but is there any other ways you go about finding out who needs help?
Yeah, absolutely. So for us, predominantly when we started off, I was the main advocate, and part of that was that as I partnered with Acts previously, so I had some idea of how all the kind of systems and stuff work in terms of the application process, and we've wanted to be slightly careful that actually we're just stewarding the money that's given through Acts as well as possible. And so I've been slightly cautious about having too many advocates that we then start duplicating, or it becomes inconsistent in terms of our approach. So we've been doing a bit of work as to how are we generous to the people that really need this support, but how do we avoid there being any risk of it being kind of exploited, or people playing a system, or that stuff which we obviously don't want to happen, and we don't want to even think would happen in a church context, but can. And so we have a second advocate, and we're looking at training someone else very soon to be a third. We've got a kind of open church, which I've literally just come from, I've run back from today, which runs 10 till 12 on a Thursday, which a little bit, it's kind of old school really. It's a little bit like what happens in a cathedral, where the church is just open and there's space for prayer, private prayer, led prayer. We've got a little cafe that serves free tea and coffee and is a space, and we hope in the coming months that becomes a kind of a bit of a drop-in surgery type space really, where if we're having people that are coming to the door and sort of saying I'm in desperate need of a washing machine, or my bed's just broken or whatever, which we do get being right in the town centre quite frequently, actually surprisingly frequently, rather than us trying to kind of bodge an answer there and then at the door when you're in the middle of other things and the right person might not be there and all that kind of stuff. We're trying to create this open church time as a bit of a hub space where we can give someone a really good invitation to say, come and have a coffee and a bicky. There'll be someone to chat with you, and there'll be someone actually kind of sat down with the ACTS form that can explain how it all works and go through it with you. And so we're looking to develop that as our main kind of space where that happens. Obviously, if stuff crops up on a Sunday or end of a youth group with a parent or something, like we can adapt that slightly, but we're hoping just to kind of formalize that a little bit, just so then we just give people the best and most consistent service, I suppose, really. In terms of our referrals, we've done some stuff through community referrals. So I very rarely take someone who is literally kind of just appeared out of nowhere asking for something very specific and just kind of take their word for it that we can do that, and then they sort of disappear off into the night and we may never see them again. Like, we've done that a few times, but that doesn't always work massively well. And in terms of it being cohesive in terms of the wider approach of our church, we want to build relationship with people, and we want ACTS to be a vehicle that helps us actually draw people into community and into relationships. So as much as possible, we've tried to make ACTS accessible to the spaces where we're already meeting with people, or where in the town we have various partners who, you know, within the food bank or within the NHS or within the job centre, and those people that can really advocate on almost on behalf of the individual that's asking for the help is really helpful. And we've also found, just finally, like, some of the most effective ones that we've done are in partnership with the school, where we've been running life skills. And I think that's really helpful, because there's already a pastoral worker at the school who's aware of some of the broader needs of that individual. Actually, when we go in and talk about cooking and it comes out in a session that people don't have a microwave, or they don't have a cooker, or they don't have a kettle, actually we know that it's not then just us inheriting all of that pastoral care just solely on ourselves, but there's already someone else or another agency or someone else that we trust, and we can work together with them. And we found that a little bit with our toddler group as well. So there's various people from our toddler group who have identified in conversation with the team at toddlers that they're really struggling because they can't get the washing to the laundrette because the washing machine's broken, and that's difficult with a pram on a bus or a tram, you know, near where we are. And so actually, in the context of that group where they're already being supported by our wonderful toddler volunteers, actually we can then support further with an ACTS thing, but we know that there's still going to be some follow-up and there's still some community kind of involved outside of just what the ACTS advocate can do, if that makes sense. So we're trying to, as much as possible, draw the requests in the context of the kind of community that we're already establishing with people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose it's a good juncture to say that we are a really flexible resource for churches and charities. And obviously, this is just one snapshot of the way, obviously, Blackpool Church, you are using us, which is just fantastic, and it's wonderful to hear. But we try and be as flexible as a resource so that we can fit into whatever things the churches already have running, or maybe you want to set up something new. I really like the idea of you dropping, Jono, you know, that people could actually, that could be a good place to start if you're a church that doesn't have anything set up yet to interact and engage with the community. Actually, a free cup of tea and a biscuit and a chat actually can sometimes then lead to those conversations where the needs come about. Definitely. And I think there's just another thing to mention on something you'd said as well about sort of the validity, the genuine, like the validity of requests, really. I suppose you were obviously talking about building that relationship and using ACTS 435 to build relationship. And I think just in terms of seeking the requests, I think it's a great idea to obviously have that face-to-face sort of relationship to be able to know that the need is genuine. But obviously we a head office team that are there to support and for you to ask questions to if you partner with us and then aren't sure about what you should say yes and no to, or things like that. And I think also churches love the fact, you mentioned it briefly I suppose, Jono, but the fact that there is a system in place by partnering with ACTS 435. It doesn't feel like you're trying to meet everybody's need, but there's a system in place with rules and guidelines that means you can say, well, we can possibly meet this need. Let's fill out the form together and see if we can. It just, gives churches that assurance that they're not trying to do everything by themselves, I suppose.
Yeah. And I think that there's a few slightly nuanced things I think that we find quite helpful. So it avoids the expectation from the individual that the church has this magic bank account sat there that can just go out and immediately buy things for them. So actually we don't all, it's a little bit case by case, to be honest, as to how we do this, and it depends on the individual. But it can be really helpful to say, actually, we partner with this amazing charity that allows us to kind of request some funds to help with really practical items where, you know, generous people around the country give to this. There's no guarantee that it will definitely happen. So I can't promise you that I'll have a bed in your front, you know, in your front bedroom today. Like I can't promise that. But what we can do is we can at least have a go. So let's put it together and at least give it a try. And without kind of heightening expectation too far, to say we want to be generous. We know there's a system that works. We can't promise the world to you today, and then you're not then feeling on the spot like there's someone that's kind of walked into church and then kind of says, I've not got this thing, and then suddenly you feel like, oh my goodness, if I don't have a fridge freezer in their kitchen by the end of the day, I failed them in some way. I think it just really helps to kind of level expectation a little bit. And I think we also find it doesn't kind of absolve us of the responsibility, but there's a sense in which again, for us, we are the kind of channel of this support, rather than it all falling directly on us and us feeling kind of put on the spot, or us feeling like, you know, kind of under unnecessary pressure from an individual. Because it can be often people are really generous, but sometimes we do face people who can actually be quite demanding, really, surprisingly. And I think for us just to have that one layer of kind of distance, and it being a partnership rather than it just being me sat in an office deciding who gets this and that, it is actually a really helpful thing to just make people aware of. So I think we sometimes use that as a kind of as just a helpful thing, and also just having really clear guidelines from Acts about the value of what the requests can be, and that kind of stuff. Again, just means that we don't end up accidentally over promising, or that kind of thing. And I think for us, certainly with the drop in stuff, like the more that we can formalize that, I think we find that helpful. You know, there have been many occasions actually for us where we've done something in the moment and we've just felt like we need to respond to this. There are other questions about kind of timing, as well as to, you know, there have been some cases where we have rightly or wrongly decided to buy the item for the individual before all the formalities come through, and we've just taken a decision as a church that if the funds are posted to Acts and don't come back in full, we will just underwrite the cost of that and we'll make it a partial Acts, partial church thing, because it's kind of desperate and urgent. So there's been a few times where we've had particularly kind of young adults turn up unable to access other support in the town, presenting as homeless, and they can meet with the housing options team in the morning, but actually it's 8 o'clock at night and their option is they're going to sleep in a bus shelter, or could we put them in a B&B? So we've kind of said, well, we will just make sure that they don't spend a night on the street before going to housing options, because that can be really detrimental to their future. Or there's been a few kind of emergency journeys that we've been able to fund for people to get back for a family. You know, there's someone who couldn't afford to get back for their parents' funeral and they were absolutely distraught about that. And so we've been able to help it, and to wait for the request to go through in full and all the admin to happen means that sometimes you can end up missing the boat on those more urgent ones. So again, there are times where we choose to wait, and we find that helpful to say to people, just again, to manage expectation, you know, I can't present you with a brand new fridge freezer today, but let's put the request in. Let's wait. Let's build relationship. Come to Open Church. Come to Alpha. Come on Sunday. We'd love to see you. You know, let's start to build that relationship with people. That's our approach sometimes. Other times it is very much to kind of, we'll meet the immediate need. If it turns out the church end up needing to find 40, 50 quid from somewhere, we will make that happen somehow. But actually, if it is that Acts fund the request, then fantastic, and that means that we can then do more, really.
Absolutely, and that's the flexibility, I suppose, that we were talking about earlier.
Absolutely,
that sense of we can meet this need now as a church and pop the request on. And a lot of our churches and charities run a float for those emergency crisis situations, that immediate the need is now, and that's absolutely fine with us, and that's where the flexibility comes in. But obviously the majority of our requests do get posted and met, and then the money gets given. And yeah, that's kind of our standard way of doing things. But obviously we're flexible, and we know that, you know, every situation is different. But that's the beauty of what we do, that, you know, as a church, you can make those decisions to do that and to flex it a little bit. So you've touched on a few, well, quite a few different types of requests, I suppose, but how do we resource you then in terms of the types of requests and the frequency of requests, I suppose, is another good question. How often do you post requests?
Yeah, good question. I mean, some of it, certainly up to this point, some of it has been a little bit kind of responsive to the needs of the community. It's quite hard to predict how many we'll have. And there have been times where I felt I can accommodate more, so I've opened the net slightly wider. And that's the other beauty of it, of course, as well, is that actually, because you can very much filter yourself as to how much or how little you actually want to take. And so there have been times where we've kind of put it out to other partners and agencies and food banks and said, actually, if you're encountering people that are in need, or the schools or the DWP, there are other times if we're under strain as a church where we just don't push that as much, and we deal with stuff that's kind of appears to us immediately. So there's a lot of flex for us. We've usually got something kind of in process at any one time, pretty much all the time. So there's either a request pending or active, kind of seeking funding, or one that we've got the money for and we're then in the process of spending that money. And then usually by the time we're at that stage, there's another one coming on. We have had 3 or 4 active at a time before. So it varies a little bit for us, really. I think hopefully with our drop-in system, we can start to predict a little bit more and formalize and kind of slightly schedule an appointment that maybe a little bit more, so we can have some idea as to what's coming. In terms of the actual requests themselves, I'd say our kind of staple is furniture and white goods. Generally, that tends to be the stuff that is most easy to kind of fund. We've done a few contributions towards carpets as well. That's now getting tricky because carpets are really expensive. But certainly doing like we've done a few where it's been people have moved into a house that's got no carpets at all, and they're worried about their child's bedroom particularly. So we've done a few where we've been able to fund a square of carpet for the child's bedroom, so at least they're going to sleep not in bare feet on a dusty floorboard. We've done a few sort of slightly niche ones. So we did one that was some special clothing for a child with a disability whose parents weren't able to get that, so special kind of shoes for them that are kind of quite specialist, and a special belt. We've done a few others, I say, that have been sort of emergency travel for people. We've done a beautiful one we did actually was a change of clothes and some towels for someone who was getting baptized and was really self-conscious that they were aware that they just didn't have, you know, going in full immersion, it'd be really difficult for them to find another pair of clean clothes for them to change into after the baptism. So being able to put that out as a request, saying like, someone's come to faith, they want to get baptized, and they're worried that, and a bit embarrassed that they don't have a towel and a set of clothes that would be presentable and appropriate for them to change into. Could anyone help with that? We felt like that was something that surely there's a Christian somewhere in the country that whose heart breaks for that. So there's been all sorts of stuff that we've done, but yeah, generally the most common would be white goods and furniture, really.
Yeah, and we love variety. You know, we always say, just try us. If you come to us and sort of say, not sure if this is a bit too niche or a bit too specific, but actually that's generally what our donors love to give towards. They love specific things that are going to make a real difference. And you know, obviously a great example there of special clothing for a child who's disabled, or we often do. We had one I was looking at yesterday for a guitar and an amp for a busker. You know, actually the things that pull at different people's heartstrings are all completely different. So we love that variety on our website. So I've just got a couple more questions, Jono, because I'm aware of the time. But obviously you lead the church, and you're also the advocate as well. But from a church leader perspective, what is the impact that Acts 435 has on sort of what your church does?
Yeah, so there's myself and Andy, who is our kind of vicar in charge, if you like. We're both heavily involved in the work of Acts within the life of the church. We've kind of been handling most of the requests, and certainly for us, I think, and it's still relatively early days. I suppose we've planted the kind of planted the church just over a year ago, so we're still fairly new, I suppose, in the scheme of churches, but certainly I think culturally we are we're seeing a culture of kind of generosity and hospitality to people at Open Church, which is beautiful to see. And I think Act is an amazing kind of leveler, I suppose, in some ways. We found that a lot of the stuff that we are identifying that people need are things that some of our congregation are shocked that people are living without, if that makes sense. And so it removes that level or any hint of kind of judgment of people having to ask for help. And so that it's been an amazing kind of there's been no sense of people going, oh, there's a kind of that seems like a luxury item that you're asking for, or why are we funding that for them? Or, which I think with some of these kind of other kind of funding projects that I've seen in churches over the years, there's been a slightly kind of, or there can be a slightly awkward sort of, oh, it feels like we're buying some really luxury items for you, but I don't actually have that myself, and why are you getting that and I'm not? And we've not had a hint of that with Acts at all. And actually there's been such compassion that we've seen from our volunteers and helpers that are going, of course you should have how on earth are you getting by when you've not got a proper bed? How do you sleep at night? We absolutely should sort that out. We must do that. And so I think it's in terms of really impassioning some of our people to really strive for justice in the town. It's been great for just opening people's eyes to what life looks like for others that are coming and attending some of our groups, who, if you don't talk to them, you wouldn't know. Like we've seen people now coming on Sundays, and beautifully people just settle in and mingle and chat, and there's no way of knowing who's got and who is with and who is without in terms of some of that material stuff at face value, but actually starting to understand that actually what we're able to do as a church is to support people who are functioning amazingly well, but just on very little resource. To be able to step in and help practically with some of that has been a real joy. And I think our hope and our prayer and our dream is that as the church grows and develops and really embeds in terms of culture, that our culture remains one of generosity, our culture remains one of hospitality, and our culture remains one that looks outwards. And I think Acts is a really important way of just kind of rooting that and giving regular points to share stories, regular points to draw people into community who we've helped through Acts. I think that's really healthy for the culture of our church.
That's really great to hear. Really fantastic. And you've briefly mentioned stories. Have you got one standout story or one that particularly sticks with you of somebody you've helped with an Acts 435 request in the last year?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's been a couple actually of, I think the ones that I've found, partly because I'm involved in life skills as well, have been where we've seen life skills and Acts kind of work together, which is just really, really amazing. So there was a guy who came on one of our life skills courses, and as part of life skills we do a cooking session. And so that's on about week 3 or week 4. So we'd already built a bit of relationship with this individual, and they over the course have been talking about how kind of food and cooking is a real challenge for them, for various reasons. And some of that has been confidence, and some of that's just been equipment and their actual kind of kitchen setup. And this person had slightly sheepishly kind of admitted to me that they didn't have a working fridge freezer. And so for them, it was really difficult to try and meal plan or try and shop in a way that we were encouraging people to start to think about, you know, buying things rather than pre-made meals or whatever, to start to buy some ingredients and learn confidence in making stuff. That actually storing that stuff is a real challenge. So we were able to do get a fridge freezer for this person, which yeah, we managed to. We've got a few links in the town that do kind of refurbished stuff, which means that we get a really good quality product that's still under warranty, or has a degree of warranty at least, but that means that it sits within the amount of money that we can ask for from ACTS. So we managed to get them a really nice fridge freezer, and by the time we then got to the cooking week on Life Skills, they were really excited that they could make the pizza that we do, which is the thing that we do. And they were able then to then buy the ingredients, and they made their own, and they brought a photo of it and showed me a few weeks later at church that they'd gone out and bought the ingredients, been able to store them and prepare them and whatever, and make the pizza. And then they brought me the photo to say so proud of themselves that they'd made this pizza. And so for us, seeing it kind of go full circle, that's been a really beautiful story. And that's not unique. There's been a few of those through Life Skills where there's been a very practical thing that in the sort of scheme of the course has cropped up as this is a real barrier for me, and it isn't just, you know, bad decisions or inability to budget that means that I can't afford it. It's literally that I just can't afford it. And us being able to just give that leg up through ACTS has then enabled them to then, you know, be able to succeed and run and help change things for themselves, which again, for us in terms of empowerment being a key part of what we're trying to do through every ministry that we have at church, really, the fact that we can put things in people's hands bought by ACTS funding that effectively gives them the tools to help themselves and set up life for themselves going forward is a really beautiful thing.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's absolutely fantastic. And yeah, just we always say small gift, big difference. And it really is those small things when somebody's in poverty, facing hardship, facing a crisis, you know, those small things can just make that massive difference. So that's a really good story to hear. So just finally from me, I suppose, before we say thank you to you, Jono, is just to say if anyone's interested in partnering with us, to head to our website and click on the Partner With Us section there, and you can fill out a form for more information and take a little bit more of a look at what we're about. But Jono, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your inspiration and encouragement in what we do as well. I really, really appreciate it.
No, thank you. And I think what's beautiful as well is just, I know we talked a lot about the flexibility of ACTS, and I know so in the previous time that I used it was in the context of a charity, like a Christian charity. Now it's in the context of a church. There's quite a lot of flexibility, isn't there, as well? If people are thinking like it might not be necessarily my church that would use this, but there's another kind of Christian organisation or something that they volunteer at or are part of, actually that can work equally, can't it? In terms of partnership.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we try and be as flexible as possible. We have a few guidelines around in terms of charities and organisations who can partner with us, but absolutely, we want to meet the needs of individuals in local community, and we do that through a variety of partners, churches, local charities, Christian and non-Christian as well, and other organisations too. So yeah, anyone who might be seeing sort of those specific needs through individuals they're meeting through either through a voluntary, as you say, a voluntary role, or through a work-placed role as well. Check out our website and have a look there too. But fantastic. Have a lovely afternoon, Jono, and thank you.
Thanks very much.
Take care. Bye-bye.